And let's talk about Superman. Now, I will warn y'all, if you haven't not seen the movie yet, you might want to click out or mute. Everybody on mute, because I will be going into a little bit of spoilers. So Superman came out over the weekend and it did big numbers. And I know the Snyder Bros are probably gonna be mad. I was trying to think of a name. What should we call like the gun fans, the James Gunn fans? I was like the Snyder Bros versus the Gunslingers. So I don't know if that's gonna stick. We're gonna make it stick on this show. So we'll call the Gun fans, the James Gunn fans, Gunslingers. And trust me, believe me, they came out guns a blazing, because the movie this weekend so far, the numbers probably went up, but they said that it flew to $122 million in its first weekend of release. Those are strong ticket sales, enough to rank as this year's third largest debut after a Minecraft movie, which I think almost grossed close to $1 billion at the box office, which it made, it came in at 162 and, over their weekend box office, and Lilo and Stitch, which I actually liked. I never saw the animated Lilo and Stitch. I know, don't throw tomatoes at me. First of all, I'm not the demographic. So Lilo and Stitch was before my time. But well, not before my time. It was like way after my time. Like I was way too older to even get into like Lilo and Stitch. But so yeah, but I saw the live action one because I was like, oh, I don't know. For some reason, every time I think I'll be watching cartoons and stuff, I don't want to be looking like Chester the Molester. So I saw the live action one, thoroughly enjoyed it. It was cute. And it came in grossing at 146 million. Now they said turnout was slightly softer than expected at the international box office, with 95 million from 78 markets, bringing its global tally to 217 million. And I will say this: I heard that I think in Korea, Jurassic World is actually beating Superman at the box office. And what I said was, there's no requirement for taste, because if y'all sitting up here watching some sorry behind Jurassic World, and I heard that movie is horrible, I'll wait until that comes out on streaming or whatever, because I'm not paying money to see that. Although I do have AMC A-list right now, so I don't really have to fully invest in paying like those full ticket prices. So they said Superman has always been identified as an American character, and in some parts of the world, America is currently not enjoying his greatest popularity, says David A. Gross, who runs the franchise movie consulting firm. So I guess what people are saying, because Superman represents America, people say true justice, American way. People are looking at this character as like, we don't necessarily mess with America right now. Like, America's pissing us off, but it's like, don't lump us all up in there. Go after the maggots and that idiot that's running the White House and all them people that he put up in there that's putting forth Project 2025 and rolling back a lot of the policies that people have a right to. We have a right to healthcare, which it should be universal and free. We should not be paying the amount of money that we pay out of pocket, whereas in other countries they pay little to no insurance on healthcare and all that other stuff. We shouldn't have rent out the wazoo. We should have we should be making a livable wage when we're not. Our infrastructure is crap, but when you go to other countries, their infrastructure is way bigger than ours and better. Like when you look at subway systems in other countries, it's like they have us beat by like a mile. And so I get it because of the whole red, white, and blue and the symbolism and all the other stuff. But let me tell you something. One of the things I loved about James Gunn in this movie, and I had no idea he was really going to go there with this, because I didn't really know how much if I was going to like the movie. Now, I was hoping and praying I was going to go in and like it. And I'm going to tell you something. The first act of the movie, it kind of threw me off. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know I was like, were the people right? Where is this, like, am I not gonna like this movie? Because literally everything y'all saw in the commercials, all the trailers and stuff they put out, from him crashing into the snow and he's all beat up and stuff, that's literally the opening of the movie. And then like majority of the other stuff that was going on in there, I mean, I like the opening. I don't know what they call it. They say opening crawl, that's very Star Wars, but like when they would post the things on there, it was like 3 centuries ago, we've had metahumans, and then 3 days ago, or 3 hours, what was it, like 3 minutes ago, he lost his first fight and all this. So I like the threes that they were putting in there. And he was basically acting as Superman for 3 years. So I like that, because I feel like they took a page out of the Batman, which is Bruce Wayne, the Robert Pattinson Bruce Wayne, had only been, what was it? Only for like a couple of years, he's been Batman. Same thing with Superman. He's like relatively new at this whole thing. So he's a little rusty. And I like the fact that they didn't entirely focus on him, that they focus a lot on the side characters, because I love the Hawk Girl, and shout out to Isabella Merced, because I just found out she's a fan of Hassan Piker. So that's why I like her even more. But I've always liked her, because I liked her in, she's been in a lot of things, but I liked her on, oh my God, what's the name of the show that was just on? The Last of Us. She was cute on that, and she's been on a couple of other things. Um, Guy Gardner, I didn't know if I was gonna like him or not, but I definitely liked his, like, how they worked him. That hair was just a distraction. I mean, it wasn't that bad of a distraction, but I thought that Nathan Fillion did a really good job. I love Mr. Terrific. He was like my favorite character in the whole movie, like especially how the juxtaposition of how he used his smarts and his intelligence and the technology in a smarter way versus the way Lex would use it. And let's talk about Lex Luthor. Now, I even thought, my Lex Luthor, the one I grew up with, will always be Michael Rosenbaum, because, I'm a Smallville guy. That's like my generation of Smallville that I grew up on. However, now that we're talking about movies, I would say out of all of them, because like I said, Gene Hackman was like before my time, although I have seen those Superman movies and I've thoroughly enjoyed them. I thought that Nicholas Hoult did a fantastic job as Lex Luthor. I always saw him as Lex Luthor from the beginning. Like, I heard people say that he was up for the role of Superman and he got beat out by David Cornsweet. I'm like, no, I don't see Superman when I look at Nicholas Hoult. I've always saw Lex Luthor, and I thought he did a phenomenal job as it. And I feel like if we're going to talk about like best to worst, the worst Lex Luthor, in my opinion, would be Jesse Eisenberg. I don't know what the hell Zack Snyder was thinking putting him. I'm like, all I see is Mark Zuckerberg. Although, I will say this, when you watch this movie, Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor definitely feels very Elon Musk, very Jeff Bezos, like in that whole sort of way, like a tech genius type. And we're not going to sit up here and try to act like that y'all didn't, though, for those of us who saw the movie, picked up on a lot of the Israel versus Palestine beats that was in there. So it was very political, like Boravia, which was very much Israel. It was like a cross between Israel and Russia. So it felt like, and then the president felt very like Netanyahu, Vladimir Putin hybrid. And there were parts of, like, of course, with Lex Luthor doing business deals with Boravia, giving them weapons to kind of go against, this other nation, which were a brown people. Some people trying to say it was Ukraine. I'm like, name a brown person y'all seen up in the damn Ukraine. I'll wait. So it clearly was. I'm sure there are brown people about there, but I've heard the stories. Like, remember when the whole Russia-Ukraine thing was going on, and there were people of color who lived in the Ukraine, was talking about the racial stuff that they were dealing with when they were there. So people are not going to be aware of that. When you look at this, because of what's going on in the world now, you definitely sense Israel versus Palestine. And I love the fact that see, this is the problem what I felt with the MCU. See, if the MCU would have done this with Captain America, Brave New World, we'd still be talking about that movie. But because that's a political thriller, and there was so many allegories and stuff where they could have touched on politically, because if you're doing a movie about Captain America, that is going to be something that has to be deeply rooted in politics. They just got so scared to jump on something because they didn't want to offend. And now look at you. Nobody's talking about Brave New World because that movie was trash. I like Anthony Mackie, but it wasn't Anthony Mackie's movie, and it wasn't his fault. It was the MCU getting scared to do what they want to do. So that's why that movie is just forgotten. Whereas with this movie, I feel like it is going to have a lot of people talking. So for the most part, I was like, I thoroughly enjoyed the film. So, like, yeah, when I was talking about the first act, I was kind of nervous because I was like, majority of everything we're seeing in the first act of the movie, the first maybe 30 minutes of the movie, all in the trailers. So it kind of took me aback. I'm like, damn, did they just like spoil the whole movie? But then once you get past that part, you start to see, okay, now I'm getting it. I'm enjoying it. It literally felt like a Saturday morning cartoon in my, like, come to life. And that's what I love about it, because as somebody who grew up watching like Saturday morning cartoons, Superman and Batman Beyond and well, of course, Power Rangers, but Power Rangers is not necessarily animated. We had the Smurfs, we had the Monchichis, we had the Snorks, we had all those cartoons and stuff I was growing up with. So as somebody who sat and watched a lot of Saturday morning cartoons growing up as a kid, and that was like a treat, because it was like during the week I wasn't really allowed to watch a lot of television because it was always focused on, you got to go to school, you got to do your homework, you can watch maybe like an hour of TV, and then you got to go to bed. So my parents were really strict in that way. And plus, growing up, we didn't have a lot of options when it came to channels and television and stuff. So there really wasn't a lot of me just sitting being raised by a TV. I literally had hands-on parents. So, so I thoroughly enjoyed that. Also, I loved Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, and especially the back and forth banter between her and Clark, because they had been dating for a couple of, what was it? I think they said about 3 months they were dating, whatever. And then he goes and says to her that she's kind of like pulling away where he's being vulnerable. And I love like the immigrant allegory that was in it, because I've always said that Superman is an immigrant. He is someone who came from Krypton, who crash landed on Earth, was found by Mom Pa Kent, who I will say the one thing I loved about this film is that James Gunn intentionally made Mom Pa Kent look like people who could possibly be from rural Kansas, not Hollywood pretty, where you would have Kevin Costner. And there's no shade to the actors, but I'm just saying, like, I like how he wanted to plant it in realism, where it's just like they look like they would really be from Kansas, rather than having Diane Lane and Kevin Costner playing your parents, because they're Hollywood beautiful. So nobody's gonna believe, and I don't care how much makeup you put on somebody to try to make them look like they older or they're not attractive. The attractiveness is still there. The Hollywood sheen is still on that. So it's not. It takes you out of it a little bit. And I also like the fact that he did a lot of bright colors. Everything popped. It really felt like it was like I'm reading a comic and it's come to life before me. Whereas you had that drabby, glib, dark, sooty feel to Zack Snyder's Superman. And I liked his Superman, but that was for a time than what it was. And that was like, what, 10 years ago or whatever when that came out. So that came out at the time we needed. But I feel like right now we need a sense of love. We need a sense of hope. We need a sense of somebody who's like, just being kind to one another. And I feel like in this world, I always tell people it's like there's the Matrix and there's the real world. Whereas there are people who are online whose sole purpose is just be trolls. I'm sure they have troll farms where you have certain Twitters and things of that nature who just like to pump out negativity. And when I go out in the real world, I come across so many more people who are nicer versus then these people who try to push this propaganda of meanness on social media. So I always say, like, don't believe it all the other crap that you hear and stuff on social media where all these people try to pump out all this negative energy, because the negative stuff, it helps the algorithms, it sells, and all this other stuff. So if you haven't seen the movie, I definitely say go see this film. I'm trying to see if I left anything out in regards of the whole thing. Oh, I will have to say this. I like Jimmy Olsen in here. I don't know his phone. I know his first name is Skylar. I forget the last name, but I like the actor that played Jimmy Olsen. And even the girlfriend who was of Lex's, I think her name was, what was her name? Eve or something or another? I think was her name. And he was very Trump in a way too, where it was just like, if somebody said something about him he didn't like, he had you banished to this world where they keeps you in cubes and all this other stuff. And he did that to a couple of his girlfriends and a bunch of other people, like bloggers and people like me who are content creators who go in on politicians. He had them kidnapped. And then there was a scene in the movie that I absolutely love when he turns himself in to Rick Flag and the engineer and a bunch of others. And he's like, I'm turning myself in like on my own accord. Like I'm coming in so that way you can question me, do whatever. Are you not going to read me my rights? And they go and say something or another. I'm paraphrasing, but it's just like, you're an alien. You don't, so many ways you don't have rights. So it felt very much like ICE grabbing regular citizens, whether they're undocumented or documented immigrants off the street without due process, reading them their rights, and shipping them off to some unknown location. I'm just like, did James Gunn get like an ear inside of what was going on in the government? Or the fact of the matter is this has been things that have been happening for years. It's just because now Trump is in office, everybody is starting to see and pay attention to what has been slowly laid out and thrown out with the breadcrumbs for a while. So I think that's what that is too, is the fact that we've had this kind of seed planted for a long time and people are just now noticing it, because at this point they're taking a sledgehammer and a wrecking ball to everything and not giving a damn of what it is that you're seeing and doing. And I will have to say this. I love the dynamic between these two, especially during the scene when he goes and kidnaps Crypto and Superman finds out about what happened with Crypto because they find out where the Fortress of Solitude is. And shout out to Bradley Cooper who plays Jor-El. I actually like the fact that, and he spoke no English in the movie, so they were speaking Kryptonian and all this other stuff, which I thought was really cool because I don't think we've ever seen, I mean, I could be wrong, but have we ever seen a movie where it was just like you would see people from Krypton speaking Kryptonian and no English? So I kind of like that whole idea of like the one little message that got destroyed, sort of, semi-destroyed on his crash landing to Earth. And that's the one thing that keeps Kal-El, it soothes him and keeps him it comforts him in the time of like anxiety or pain or whatever the case is. And I like the fact that they made Superman vulnerable because it's like, how do you make someone who is indestructible? How do you make someone who's perceived as a god? How do you make someone who's perceived as perfect in every way interesting? And I feel like he's found a way to do it. James Gunn has found a way to do it. So I liked all the little crumbs and stuff in there. Now I will say this. Oh yeah, so I like the dynamic between them because this was the scene when like he kicks the puts the desk and all this other stuff, and then the girlfriend's filming everything with the phone. She irritated me. So with that damn selfie stuff. Then halfway through, I'm like, wait a minute. When there's a specific scene with her and Jimmy Olsen finding out they were like in a prior relationship with each other before she got with Lex Luthor. And I'm like, wait a minute. So with her now I know, and I caught it before they revealed anything. I was like, okay, she was the selfies thing. She was secretly filming a lot of or taking pictures of a lot of Lex's plans in case anything happens to her. She could send the information to who she needs to send it to. And the fact of the matter is because she was basically his source on the inside. That was the way they were going to get that information and all this stuff. So I was like, okay, clever. And there's always and I always seem to forget when it comes to James Gunn and his writing, there's always a method to his madness. So I always have to trust in going on the ride with him because he's like, you may find certain characters annoying. You may find this little thing just not something that you need to be paying attention to. But everything you see in these movies, every little piece is a puzzle that leads to something. And that's what I loved about this movie is like, this is something you definitely have to pay attention to. Now, the first night I saw it was Friday. I went to see it early. I think, yeah, because I told you I was going to go see it. I saw it in Dolby. I'm going to actually go see it next week in IMAX. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it on that big screen and getting that whole feel of it because I know they shot some of it with IMAX cameras and people are saying that it was meant to be seen in that way. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I also like Crypto. Crypto at some times I was just like, there were certain things with him that was kind of bothering me. But I think it's because he reminds me so much of my dog, Prince. Same breed, white dog. You try to train them as much as you can. They just literally do whatever the hell they want to do. So I think that's why he irritated me because it's, but at the end of the day, you can't do anything but love those dogs. And Crypto was literally a splitting image of my dog. So it's just like, yeah, I think that's why it just bothered me because I was like, okay, this is a too close to home type situation. And then I saw this video of Ben Shapiro hating on the movie. I'm like, you're such an idiot. You don't even know what the hell you're watching. Because all the things I'm pointing out to is basically like it was shining a light on ICE, it was shining a light on fascism, it was shining a light on the fact that Lex is someone who at the end of the day just wants to be loved. Hopefully we can see maybe Lionel will make an appearance in the next movie, who is Lex's father, if he's alive, and get to the root of why Lex is the way he is and why he has such a hard-on for Superman and why he hates him so much and why he has created certain metahumans to go after Superman. Like, what is y'all beef? Like, I want a little more backstory on that. I mean, we got a little bit of it in the movie, but I would love to see them play up on that more because I'm sure they're going to bring Lex back in the sequel. I mean, he's not dead. I mean, you'd be a fool to kill off Lex Luthor. But oh yeah, so let's get into this. So somebody got mad at me because I swore the fact that Supergirl makes a cameo in the movie. But I'm like, if y'all been actually reading the reports and stuff, there was always stories floating around that Supergirl was going to make an appearance in this movie. In the beginning, I did not like the way that they brought her in. But after further research, I took back my overall feelings. And because I was like, they made her like this drunken party girl that she's been flying off the different parts of the different planets and just out here drinking and partying and this, that, and the other. I was not aware of that this is actually a storyline that comes from the Woman of Tomorrow book, comic book, which is what the next Supergirl movie is going to be, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which they've just changed the name to Supergirl, similar to Superman. Superman was going to be Superman Legacy. Thank God they changed it because I was like, that sounds stupid. Just call it Superman. And then maybe when the next one you call it Superman Part 2 and then Superman Part 3. Same thing with Supergirl. So they are going to be taking a lot of inspiration from Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. And in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, her character is someone who is another person that is suffering from Krypton being destroyed, that sort of thing, and how she's dealing with the trauma of losing her planet, her home planet, like Clark. Clark is dealing with it in other ways. How she's dealing with it is through partying, through drinking, and all that other stuff. We all know that that's not the answer to anything. So I have a feeling, because I've never read Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, that in her solo movie, we're going to explore more of that. Her being the party girl, her hanging out on different planets, her doing this, that, and the other. And that's probably how she encounters Lobo, because he goes on different planets too. He's a bounty hunter, and there's going to be some catastrophic threat that's going to force her to kind of get her act together and want to step up and be the superhero that she's destined to be, similar to her cousin. So I think that's the direction that they're going to be going into. So I probably forgot some stuff to mention about Superman. I'll probably be talking about this way more down the road. But in the meantime, shout out to Warner Brothers, I'll say, because y'all been, even though y'all had a couple of flops with Joker Foley Adudu, Mickey 17, and the Alto Knights, those three movies didn't do all that well. Warner Brothers had a lot more hits than misses. They had a Minecraft movie did well. Final Destination Bloodline, Sinners, F1 the movie, all of that is Warner Brothers. Now we have Superman. So they're doing relatively well at the box office. Warner Brothers having a great year so far, even though, yeah, it's like the hits outweigh the misses. So congratulations to them. But to wrap this up, because I did say that Superman's box office beats Zack Snyder's Man of Steel opening. So yeah, according to Superhero Hype, they said that Superman has officially outpaced Zack Snyder's Man of Steel at the domestic box office. The reboot earned more in its first weekend than the 2013 film. Okay, so it was 10 years ago. I was correct. I thought about, I just threw that out there. I was like, it felt like 10 years ago. But anyway, so they said, marking a strong start at DC Studios. The early success set the stage for the franchise's next chapter under Gunn's direction. Superman debuted with a domestic opening of 122 million, ranking as the third biggest opening week. We already talked about that. And then it says, according to Box Office Mojo, Superman's domestic gross currently accounts for 56.2% of its worldwide total, with the film reaching 270 million globally after its first weekend. Internationally, the film earned 95 million across all markets. Warner Brothers distributed the film, which runs 2 hours and 9 minutes and holds a PG-13 rating. And here's another thing. That movie went by quick. I'll say that. I was like, damn, this movie's almost over. Like, I was shocked with how fast the movie just like went by so fast. I'm like, but it was, it's definitely worth going to see. Now, they said, compared to its predecessor, 2013's Man of Steel, Superman surpassed the earlier film's domestic opening of 116.6 million. However, Man of Steel reached a total global, Man of Steel, let's do that over. However, Man of Steel reached a total global gross, say that 10 times fast, of 670.1 million during its theatrical run, with international receipts making up 56.6 of that figure. So, while that's great, congratulations, Man of Steel, for grossing $670.1 million while you were in theaters. We will have to wait to see how well Superman does, as long as it's going to be in theaters, and we'll compare those numbers when we cross that bridge. So I don't think while we can talk about, we can talk about weekend box office versus both films, since the Snyder Bros wants to constantly bring up, or we're trying to find a reason to hate on this movie. Now the gunslingers have something to be all excited about for now. But like I said, once all of this theatrical run stuff is done and over with, we'll revisit this conversation. So I say all this to say, what do you guys think of this story? Did you guys see Superman? What did your overall thoughts about it? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Good, bad, or indifferent. I definitely want to hear your comments as long as it's respectful. So let me know what you know. And I love the fact that we had some political stuff that was thrown in the film, which it needed to be because Superman is a political comic. Like if you're going to be talking about someone who does have beneath the surface, you really look at it, or is it really beneath it, or just people weren't paying attention? If you look at someone like Superman, he is like a resident of DACA. Like he's very much, he has a lot of the DACA, you know, he fits that category of that type of, you know, immigrant. So we didn't have a name for it back in the day. But now that, you know, we have evolved and things have changed and we're more political than ever, we now have names to put to some of the stuff that was created. Whereas when it comes to Superman, Superman is almost 90 years old. So for people to try to act like this is just, you know, some new thing that somebody just pulled, that James Gunn just pulled out of their behind, it's just like, no, you just wasn't paying attention. And Superman hasn't changed. Your politics basically is what has changed. So I definitely want to hear from y'all. So let me know what your overall thoughts on this story in the comments down below.